There's a moment many survivors remember, a quiet moment. Sometimes months after the relationship ended, sometimes even years later, when a sudden realization appears in your mind, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet thought that changes everything. You begin remembering conversations. Moments when you tried to explain how you felt, moments when you asked for understanding, moments when you hoped they would finally see you. And suddenly a painful question appears. What if they never truly saw me at all? Not the real you, not your fears, not your kindness, not your effort. And when this realization arrives, it can feel heartbreaking because it forces you to confront something many survivors struggle to accept. The relationship may have felt deeply real to you, but to the narcissist, something very different was happening. And once you understand this, many confusing memories begin to make sense. If you've experienced a narcissistic relationship, you might remember how much energy you spent trying to be understood, trying to explain yourself, trying to fix misunderstandings, trying to show them who you really were. Maybe you said things like, "I just want you to understand how I feel. I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to make this work." But somehow, the same conflicts kept repeating, the same accusations, the same misunderstandings, the same feeling of being unseen. And over time, something painful begins to happen. You start questioning yourself. Am I explaining it wrong? Am I being too sensitive? Why can't they understand me? But here's the part most survivors only realize much later. Sometimes the problem wasn't that you were hard to understand. The problem was that they weren't truly trying to see you. To understand why this happens, we need to understand something important about narcissistic psychology. Because for many narcissists, other people are not always experienced as fully separate emotional individuals. Instead, people can become something else. Reflections, extensions, roles. In other words, the narcissist often interacts not with who you truly are, but with the role you play in their emotional world. And this changes everything. Because once someone is seen primarily as a role, something important disappears. And we'll come back to that in a moment. Because understanding this part explains why so many survivors feel like they were never truly known during the relationship. Think about moments like this. You tried to talk about something that hurt you. Maybe something they said, maybe something they did. You explained calmly, you tried to communicate, but instead of listening, they reacted defensively or dismissively, or they turned the conversation around. Suddenly, the problem wasn't what they did. The problem became your reaction. You're too sensitive. You always make things dramatic. You're imagining things. And slowly, without realizing it, the conversation shifted away from your feelings and toward defending yourself. And this is why these moments can feel so exhausting, because every attempt to be understood somehow turns into another conflict. Here's the part most people don't understand. For someone with strong narcissistic traits, acknowledging another person's emotional reality can feel threatening because it challenges their self-image. It introduces the possibility that they may have caused pain, and that can create internal discomfort. So instead of exploring that discomfort, the mind often protects itself by minimizing, deflecting, or rewriting the narrative. And over time, the real you becomes harder for them to see. Not because you disappeared, but because the narcissist's psychological defenses made authentic connection difficult. Now pause for a moment. Think about how many times you tried, how many conversations you initiated, how many times you explained your feelings, how many times you tried to repair the relationship. That effort mattered, even if it wasn't received the way you hoped. Because it shows something important about you, your capacity for empathy, your willingness to communicate, your desire for real connection. Those qualities are not weaknesses, they are signs of emotional depth. But there's another reason survivors often feel invisible in these relationships. And it's something many people only realize after the relationship ends. Because sometimes, the moment you begin pulling away, the narcissist suddenly starts seeing you again, or at least appearing to, and this creates another kind of confusion. When a narcissist senses distance, something interesting can happen. They may suddenly become more attentive, more affectionate, more aware of you, at least temporarily. They notice your absence, they notice the emotional shift, and sometimes they try to pull you back. But this attention often appears only when the dynamic is changing. When the relationship feels secure, your emotional needs may have been ignored. But when you begin detaching, suddenly they seem more aware. And this pattern leaves many survivors asking a painful question. Why could they see me when I was leaving, but not when I was hurting? And this is where the deeper understanding begins. Because in many narcissistic relationships, attention is often connected to control, not necessarily to empathy, which means your presence may have been valued, but your emotional experience may not have been fully understood. And sometimes, the moment this realization begins to surface, it doesn't happen all at once. It comes through memories, small moments that once seemed confusing, but suddenly begin to look different. You might remember a conversation where you were crying, trying to explain why something hurt you, and instead of comfort, you received irritation, or distance, or silence. At the time, you may have told yourself, they're just stressed. They didn't understand what I meant. Maybe I didn't explain it well. But later, when you look back with clearer eyes, you begin to notice something else. A pattern. A pattern where your emotional world was rarely explored, rarely validated, rarely held with care. And this realization can be painful because it forces you to face a difficult truth. You weren't asking for too much. You were asking for something very basic. To be heard, to be understood, to be emotionally met. But here's the part most survivors struggle with at first. When someone spends enough time in a relationship where they feel unseen, they sometimes begin to shrink parts of themselves. Not consciously, but gradually. You may stop sharing certain feelings, stop bringing up certain topics, stop expressing certain needs, because experience has taught you that those things won't be received well. So you adapt, you become quieter, more careful, more accommodating, and in many ways, this is a survival response. Your nervous system is trying to reduce conflict, trying to preserve connection, trying to keep the relationship stable. But over time, something else begins to happen. You start losing contact with your own emotional voice. Not completely, but slowly. And this is why the healing process after a narcissistic relationship can feel so strange. Because it's not just about grieving the person. It's about rediscovering the parts of yourself that became quieter along the way. The opinions you stopped sharing, the needs you stopped expressing, the emotions you learned to hide. And here's the powerful part. When those parts of you begin to return, something shifts. Your voice becomes clearer. Your boundaries become stronger. Your instincts become louder. And suddenly, the idea of being invisible in a relationship becomes much harder to tolerate. Not because you became more demanding, but because you remembered something important. You deserve to exist fully in the relationships you are part of. Not as a role, not as an emotional support system, but as a whole person, seen, heard, and respected. And once that realization appears, many past moments begin to make sense. The conversations that went nowhere, the feelings that were dismissed, the moments you felt invisible. But here's the part that can eventually become empowering. Being unseen by someone who could not truly recognize your emotional depth does not mean you were invisible. It means you were in a relationship with someone who struggled to see beyond their own psychological needs. Your empathy was real, your effort was real, your love was real. And those things remain part of who you are, but now something new can grow alongside them. Discernment, boundaries, self-respect. Because healing doesn't just mean moving on from the narcissist. It means learning to recognize relationships where your voice is heard, your feelings are respected, and your presence is genuinely valued. One of the most painful realizations after a narcissistic relationship is understanding that the person you tried so hard to be seen by may never have truly known you, but strangely, that realization can also become a form of freedom. Because once you stop trying to be seen by someone who couldn't truly see you, you begin rediscovering yourself, your voice, your truth, your boundaries. And slowly, the person who begins to see you clearly again is you. If this video helped you understand your experience a little more clearly, consider subscribing. This channel exists to help you understand narcissistic relationships and continues your healing journey. And if you've ever wondered why narcissists suddenly move on so quickly after a breakup, the next video on this channel explains exactly why they replace people so fast. You may want to watch that one next.